Namaste, devotees, and Jai Sita Ram. As you can see today, we are not physically at the mandir. We are actually performing our virtual service remotely. But nonetheless, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to a regular virtual Sunday morning satsang. For those of you who know, I'll ask to please join with me in this wonderful bhajan before we commence with our prayers for today. आज अंधेरे में है हम इंसान, ज्ञान का सूरज चमका दे भगवान। आज अंधेरे में है हम इंसान, ज्ञान का सूरज चमका दे भगवान। भक्त करे हमारा अधिकारे भगवान राधिकारे, भक्त करे हमारा अधिकारे भगवान राधिकारे। कदम कदम पर किरण बिचारे भगवान किरण बिचारे, कदम कदम पर किरण बिचारे भगवान किरण बिचारे। इन अखियन को प्रभु करा दे, इन अखियन को प्रभु करा दे। ज्योति से पहचान, ज्योति से पहचान। आज अंधेरे में है हम इंसान, ज्ञान का सूरज चमका दे भगवान। हम तो हैं संतान तिहारे प्रभु संतान तिहारे, हम तो हैं संतान तिहारे प्रभु संतान तिहारे। तेरे दया के हम अधिकारे प्रभु है हम अधिकारे, तेरे दया के हम अधिकारे प्रभु है हम अधिकारे। दुनिया होए सुखी हमारे, दुनिया होए सुखी हमारे। ऐसा दे वरदान, ऐसा दे वरदान। आज अंधेरे में है हम इंसान, ज्ञान का सूरज चमका दे भगवान। आज अंधेरे में है हम इंसान, ज्ञान का सूरज चमका दे भगवान। Devotees, at this time, I ask that we all please clasp our hands, close our eyes, that we focus our minds on the feet of Bhagwan as we commence with our prayers and our puja for this morning. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnata Purnamurachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Ishavasyam Miram Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjeta Magrudha Kasya Swidhanam Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Hari Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om. Devotees, may we all join together now as we commence in chanting the most powerful Gayatri Mantra. Om Magakshe Varade Devi Akshare Brahmavadini Gayatri Jagat Matar Vishwayoni Namostute. Om Bhore Bhuvasvam Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhore Bhuvasvam Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhore Bhuvasvam Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Hari Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Prem se bolo Gayatri Mata ki Jai. As we commence with our prayers for today, devotees, I ask that we all join together as we offer prayers to that destroyer of all obstacles in our life, that remover of any emotional, physical, metaphysical, spiritual, or mental obstacle, as we offer prayers to Lord Ganesh. Om Shri Ganganapataye Namaham. Om Yajananam Bhutaghanadhi Sevitam Kapita Jambhu Palachara Bhakshanam Umasutam Shoka Vinashakarakam Namami Viganeshwara Pada Pankajam. Namami Viganeshwara Pada Pankajam. Om Vakratunda Mahakayam Suryakoti Samaprabham Nirviganam Kurme Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada. Om Raksha Raksha Ganadaksha Rakshatre Lokya Rakshakar Bhaktanam Bhayam Karita Trata Bhava Bhavarnavad. Om Shriman Mahaganadipate Namaham. Prem se bolo Ganesh Bhagwan ki Jai. As we continue on with our prayers, devotees, we now offer obediences to that universal mother and that destroyer of all evils in our life. We offer prayers to Adi Shakti and Durga Mata. Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhadra Kali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Swadha Namostute. Jai Tvam Devi Chamunde Jai Putardeni Hardeni Jai Sarvagate Devi Kalarhatri Namostute. Adevi Sarvabhuteshu Vishnu Maiti Shabdita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Samstita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Samstita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samstita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shraddha Rupena Samstita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shanti Rupena Samstita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Dhushti Rupena Samstita. Namastasye 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 Namo Namaya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Dhyarupena samstitha namastasye 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 namo namah. Devotees, as we pray to Adi Shakti Durga Mata, we say, O Durga Mata, thou art the supporter of all, and we, your children, worship you in your many forms. O Ma, we see you as Buddhi, Lakshmi, Shakti, Shraddha, Shanti, Tushti, and Dayarupe. And as we pray to you, O Ma, Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha, as we pray to you, O Ma, we bow to thee again and again. Devotees, may we all join together as we offer prayers to Mother Durga in the form of the Universal Mother, Matri Rupe. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matri Rupena Samstitha Namastasye 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 Namo Namande Saubhagyam Narogyam Dehi Me Paramam Sukham Rupam Dehi Jayam Dehi Yasho Dehi Dvesho Jahi. Om Prem Samurari Shakti Durga Mata Ki Jai. Devotees, may we all join together now as we offer prayers to that sustainer of all things righteous, all things dharmic in this universe, as we offer prayers to Lord Vishnu. Om Shanthakaram Bhujagashayanam Bhadmanabham Surisham Vishwadharam Gagane Sadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Om Lakshmi Kantam Kamale Nayanam Yogi Bhira Dhyanagamyam Vanne Vishnu Bhavabhayaharam Sarvaloke Kanatam Om Sashankha Chakram Sakiritha Kundalam Sapita Vastram Sarisi Ruhekshanam Sahara Vakshastana Shovikhostu Bhashriyam Namami Vishnu Shirasa Chatura Bhujam Namami Vishnu Shirasa Chatura Bhujam Om Prem Sabara Vishnu Bhagwane Ki Jai. And finally, devotees, we offer prayers to that universal Father, that universal Guru. We offer prayers to that destroyer of all evils in our life, and in this universe we offer prayers to Lord Shiva. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Dharapurang Haurang Harunavataram Samsara Saram Bhujagindraharam Sarha Santam Hirdayardavinde Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami. Devotees, may we all join together as we chant Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Devotees, as we continue on, we offer this next prayer for all those suffering from various illnesses, diseases, injuries, and ailments. We ask that they may have a fast, speedy, and full recovery. We also offer a prayer for those transitioning from this world to the next. May their passage be a smooth and tranquil one. As we join together, Om Trayambakam Yajamehe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam urvarukamiv bandhanat mrityurmukshyo mamrutat trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiv bandhanat mrityurmukshyo mamrutat trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiv bandhanat mrityurmukshyo mamrutat Om Gangarapate Namaha, Om Kartikeya Namaha, Om Nandishwaraya Namaha, Om Vasukiya Namaha, Om Shri Samba Sadha Shivaya Namaham. Prem se Bolo Shiva Shankara Bhagwan ki Jai. Devotees, before we continue on with our sermon for today, I ask that for any of us who have a guru, that we all join together and we offer a prayer to our guru. If not, then I ask you take Lord Shiva in your mind as the universal guru, as we all join together. Om Gurura Brahma, Gurura Vishnu, Gurura Deo Maheshwara, Gurura Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Prem se Bolo Guru Deo ki Jai. Devotees, last week when we had commenced with our sermon, we were continuing on in chapter 4, which is known as Jnana Yoga, the yoga of transcendental knowledge in the Srimad Bhagvat Gita. And we ended on verse 21. Verse 21, which I didn't tell you exactly what it said, but I did let you know that it says that Bhagwan Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna that it's about people who are not affected by sinful reactions resulting from their karma. How can we avoid having sinful things done to us, or have those sinful actions act upon us based off the actions that we do? How can we clear that at all? Because wouldn't that be nice to know? Sometimes when we perform an action, there is going to be sin, but how do we avoid that sin? So it goes to tell Arjuna, he says specifically, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
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 Nirasaryata Chittatma Tyakta Sarva Parigraha Sariram Kevalam Karma Kurovan apnoti kilbisam. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
I'll let you know, devotees, that it's very difficult what Bhagwan Shri Krishna is telling us to do. He says that one who can control his mind and senses, who is devoid of fruitive desires, who has given up all variety of sense pleasure, and who performs karma only for bodily maintenance, does not become affected by sinful reactions resulting from his karma. Very difficult. It's one who could control his mind and senses. How many of us can control our mind and senses? Controlling our mind is very difficult. Somebody says something, we have to react. We have to give our opinion. That's what happens. It takes a level-headed mind to not just throw out an opinion, to say something. And the same thing happens when it comes to controlling our senses. If there's a distraction going on in the room, your senses are diverted over to that. For instance, if you hear your parents whispering to your left, you're going to get distracted and look over to your left to see your parents whispering at each other. Or if you see a bug flying on your right-hand side, you're going to look over to the right and see the bug. So our senses will get distracted. Somebody who's given up those desires of earthly pleasures, who has given up all sense pleasures, who performs karma, who does his action only to maintain the body. We'll get into this a little bit later on too, about what it means to have a balanced body. That's within these verses. But it's somebody who does his action just to maintain his body, not does their actions, his or her actions, to get something out of it. Now, I go to work every day. I don't go to work. I'm working remotely. I log into work every day. And we do that so we can get the money. And we need that money for what? To buy the Lamborghinis, to eat the fanciest of foods, right? That's what we need the money for? No, we need the money to sustain our life, because without the money, I can't pay rent. We won't have water. Without our income, Sri and I wouldn't be able to pay our electricity. We wouldn't have health care if we got sick. So we perform those actions to maintain our body, our mind, our soul, to make sure that we stay safe and healthy. But he goes on to say more about these people who are controlled in their mind, people who are controlled in their senses, and what their actions, what their, what they're like physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Bhagwan Shri Krishna goes on to say, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Yarachala bhasam tusto dvandvatito vidmatsara samasiddhava siddhaucha kritva pina nibhagyate gatha sangasya muktasya jnana vastita chetasa yajnaya charata karma samagram praviliyate Brahmarparnam Brahma Havir Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam Brahmavatena Ghatvayam Brahma Karma Samadhina Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Bhagwan Shri Krishna goes on to say, he who is satisfied with the objects that come of their own accord and who tolerate dualities such as heat and cold or happiness and distress is free from envy and remains equiposed in success and failure. Although he performs karma, he does not become bound. One who is devoid of material attachments and whose mind is situated in true knowledge is liberated. All desires of such a person who perform every action for the worship of Parameswar is completely dissolved. Thus he attains the state of akarma, no action, does not have to perform action. Brahma can be attained by one who performs yajna, in which sacrificial instruments, the ghee, the fire, the offerings, and the priest are all Brahma. Such a person is qualified to attain Brahma, becomes Brahma because he is fully absorbed in karma, which is of the same nature as that Brahma. So let's break it down. I want to talk about the first two verses. He who is satisfied with objects that come of his own accord, who tolerate dualities such as heat and cold or happiness and distress. We're talking about a person who's very balanced. I, personally, hate Georgia summer. Why? Because I hate the heats. I don't like sweating. I can't stand the heat. Every time it's hot, I go, oh gosh, it's hot. I know Mahendra's not sitting here, but he walked up and he goes, oh man, this room's hot. And then he left because he also doesn't like the heat. But then not everybody's the same way. I know Serena doesn't like it when it's too cold. And that's perfectly fine. But we still have our opinion. So for me, in the heat, I don't like the heat. So what do? I go in and I turn on the fan and I sit in front of the fan. Serena says, let's go for a walk. I said, no, it's hot outside. I don't want to do it. Let me go mow the yard. No, it's too hot outside. I don't want to do it. So I'm not being balanced in that nature. But then it's somebody who's also balanced in happiness and distress. And that's very difficult. We have people who are sore losers, but we also have people that are sore winners. When you're happy and you're in a great emotional state, sometimes your ego takes over. And then you start bragging. You start becoming enveloped in what would be a sin. But if you lose and you start spouting evil, mean words to people, Oh, you cheated. Oh, you didn't play fairly. Oh, it was because, I got a cramp in my leg since yesterday. Oh, it's because I'm not hydrated. That complaining is not getting you anywhere either. I want to look at it from the perspective of taking this incense stick right here. On one end of the incense stick, we have the level of good, and on the other end of the incense stick, we have a level of bad. Somebody who is truly balanced lives with both ends of the stick. Now, if I put my finger too close to the bad end, what happens to that stick? If I let go, what's going to happen? It's going to fall over, just like that. But if I live in the very center of it, I'm going to try to balance it. My hands are shaky. Just realistically, it should stay balanced on my finger, just like that. What I should not do, though, devotees, in order for me to maintain this balance, is get rid of a piece of that incense. Yes, I'm shifting the end, but what happens if I break the end of this piece off right here? I'll break it off. So I broke off some of the dark side. I'm going to put my finger back on the point that was the center, which is right here. What happens? What's going to happen when I let go? It's going to fall again. In order for us to maintain balance, devotees, we have to shift between these states. Stay in the very middle. But at no point can we start breaking off the ends of that balance. Because if we take off too much of this on each end, what's going to happen to us? If I take up too much, what's going to happen to the stick? It's unbalanced. There's not going to be anything left. If we learn to manage our lives in between the forces of good and evil, in between this state of consciousness and unconsciousness, in between this state of heat and cold, in between the state of happiness and distress, without trying to cut things out of our life, we will live a full, happy, and healthy whole life. But if we take those pieces off, devotees, if we remove bit by bit on the end, what are we left with? Nothing. We're left with nothing. So he's saying that we need to have a balance in this world. One who's devoid of material attachments and whose mind is situated in true knowledge. True knowledge, knowing that balance is where we need to be, is liberated. If you perform your action for Parameswar, if you perform your action for Bhagwan, then you will attain a state of akarma, meaning that you are performing your action for who? To please who? Parameswar, Bhagwan. We all perform actions with specific intents. Sometimes we perform action to please our parents. Sometimes we perform actions to please our spouse. Sometimes we perform actions to please our siblings. Sometimes we perform an action to please those around us. Right? Every time we do something, we do it with the intent of some reason. Sometimes that reason isn't to please somebody. Sometimes it's in spite. Oh, I'm going to leave my shoes in front of the door so that way when they walk in the house, they hit the door and they get angry. We don't do that. That's an example, right? I don't do it on purpose. Brahma can be attained by one who performs yajna, in which the sacrificial instruments, ghee, a hawankund, the offerings, your flowers, the priest are all Brahma. I'm honing on that one word priest because I want you to keep in mind, in this system, even if your priest is corrupt, are you offering to Brahma? No. No. Everything has to be appropriate when we're doing this. Such a person is qualified to attain Bhagwan, to attain moksha, because he's fully absorbed in the karma which relates to moksha, to Brahma. So that's what Bhagwan Shri Krishna is saying. If we do our actions with the intent of doing good, we'll be absorbed and absolved in good. But if we do all of our actions with the intent of doing bad, with the intent of doing evil, with the intent of doing harm, that's where we're going to be absolved in. So if you're a sore winner and you brag and you gloat, you're not balanced, right? You are absorbing yourself more in a sin. I loved playing soccer as a kid because when we played soccer at the end of every game, what we would have to do is we would line up on the field as teammates and the other team would walk by and you would high-five each other. And you want to know what made a good team different from a bad team? A good team would just give you a high-five and say, good game. A bad team would spit on their hands and then give you a high-five as they went through. They did something that looked like a good action, but there was purely evil intent behind it. So if you do your actions with good in mind, good will come to you. But Bhagwan Shri Krishna is not done. He goes on to tell Arjuna a little bit more about performing these actions. Not only about the mind and the spirit, but the body as well. He goes on to tell Arjuna, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Naivam eva pare yajnam yogina parya upasate brahmagnava pare yajnam yajne naivopajhuvati srotradin indriyanyanye samyam agnisujhuvati sabdadin risayan anya indrayagnisujhuvati sarvanindriya karmani pranakarmani cha pare atma samyamayo bhagnao jhuvati jnanani pite trauya yajnastapo yajna yoga yajnastata pare swadhyaya yajnana yajnascha yathayam samsita vrataha Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Bhagwan Shri Krishna in verse 25 goes on to say that there's two kinds of yogis in this world. There are the karma yogis who performically perform deva yajna in the form of worshipping the devas, sitting down, performing puja, sitting down and meditating. But there's others, jnana yogis, who offer all of their activities as oblations to the yajna of Brahma. So they do everything with the focus of God in their minds. They work on behalf of God. The things I can think about are the monks that live in the Himalayas. There's a picture online of a monk who will go to the same spot every day. For years, I think 30, 40 some odd years, he would go to the same spot and pray every day. And you know what happened to that spot over time? It was a wood floor. His footprints got embedded into the wood floor. His rigor and his constant act of worship embedded his footprints into the actual wood because it wore away over time, because that's how devoted he was. So he performed worship in that way. But others perform action in the name of God. A missionary will go out and they'll build homes for those who don't have them. Get water for people who don't have access to it. And even though they're doing it in the name to help those out there, to make sure that they stay happy and healthy, they're also doing it in the name of God. So there's two kinds of people, he's saying. He's saying that there are some folks, the brahmacharis, who offer their hearing and other senses into the fire of the controlled mind, while the grihastas offer sense objects, such as sound, into the fire of the senses. Other yogis offer activities of all of their senses and life airs into the fire of the controlled self, which is illuminated by knowledge. He goes on to say that some perform dravya yajna by giving their possessions to charity. Some perform tapo yajna by performing austerities. And some perform yoga yajna by practicing the yoga of the eightfold mysticism. Others perform swadhyaya yajna by studying the Vedas and acquiring transcendental knowledge. So he's giving us a list of different people. Understand, people who worship, how they worship, people who serve God, how they serve God, people who serve men and women with the intent of God in mind. But he says that there's one thing that all of these groups have in common. It says, all who make such endeavors, all who perform such endeavors, all who partake on such endeavors follow strict vows. Their karma has them leading on a path with strict vows. One of the groups that I tend to think about a lot when it comes to strict vows are the monks that have renounced saying any words. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a group of monks who worship God. It may not be the same God we worship, but they still worship God, but they've renounced speaking. How many of us can go an entire day without speaking, let alone the rest of our lives? I can't. I know I can't. If I see somebody drop their wallet and I don't say anything, that does kind of make me a bad person. Even if I pick it up and run after them, how are they going to know that that's their wallet? What they're going to see is a crazy man tap them on the shoulder, waving this wallet around, trying to get a message across. But I'd have to use my words to do it. So I wouldn't be able to do that. When we go on an endeavor, we follow strict vows, strict rules to do it. When you're sitting down to perform a puja, what are some things that you should do? You should fast. Don't eat meat. If possible, don't eat salt. I get the question at times, oh, I'm about to sit down for puja. Can I have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea? The answer truly to that question is no. And why not? Because it contains caffeine. And what does caffeine do to your mind? It accelerates the rate at which the electrical charges fire in your brain, causing you to lose focus. That's why we tell people, don't drink coffee or tea. We tell them not to eat salt so it doesn't raise your blood pressure. We ask you to follow on these strict vows. Now, some of the blame comes to us because when we tell you not to do that, and when a pundit tells you not to do that, we don't fully explain why, but those are some of the reasons why. When you go to school and you're learning, you're also following strict vows. Your vows are to listen. But when you're not in school, when you're not in class listening, what are you supposed to be doing? What is your responsibility? It's to study. It's to do the homework. It's to complete the projects. But it's not to get distracted. When you go to work, it's our responsibility to perform our duties at work. It's also our responsibility to make sure that we're not being distracted by external forces. Going onto Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all these social media pages. I can't tell you the number of times I see somebody go to work and they're posting videos of something that happened at work. I can't tell you the number of times I see people waking up in the morning and driving to work and they're posting a video of their drive. That is extremely dangerous. I'm not going to text and drive. I'm just going to record a video and upload it to Snapchat. That's cool, right? No, that's not. We perform strict vows. We make promises when we go onto these duties, these things that we have to do. Our jobs, our families, events, celebration. Strict vows. And when we defer, when we deter, when we deviate from those vows, when you decide to drink alcohol and drive, what are you doing? You're putting your life and everybody else's life at danger. So, for all of these people who have control of their mind, who worship God, who are performing their duties, their karma on this world in the name of God, they're doing it with strict vows in mind, and they're not deviating from those vows. They made that promise. But Bhagavan Shri Krishna is still not done. He goes on to talk a little bit more about such people, about such devoted people, and what their lives are like. He goes on to say, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Apane Juvati Pranam, Prane Panam Tatam Pare, Prana Pana Gati Rudhva, Prana Yama Parayana, Apare Niyathara, Pranam Pranisyu Juvati, Sarvepya Eti Jajna Vidho, Yajnak Sapita Kalmasa, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
I really like this verse 29 of the Srimad Bhagvat Gita, because it's another confusing verse. I think it's a confusing verse. Others who are devoted to pranayama, controlling our life force being the force that we have to live on this world for however many years we're going to live on this world. It could be 1, it could be 100. Right? So far, I've had the blessing of living on this world for 30 years. Offer prana, outgoing breath, into aparana, incoming breath, and vice versa. So he's saying that for those who are devoted to controlling their life force, we offer both our incoming breath and our outgoing breath at the same time. By gradually stopping both incoming and outgoing breaths, We become fixed in controlling our life force. Not everybody does that, though. He goes on to say that others, while checking their eating process, offer their prana into the fire of life itself. So let's talk about these two things. He's talking about offering our incoming and outgoing breath at the same time. There are some people who have the ability to inhale and exhale at the same time. It is very rare. For those who are very skilled in playing what we call a didgeridoo, and I know not a lot of people know what that is, it's a very long stick, and when you blow into it, it just goes wah, 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 wah. People who are very well trained in playing that instrument, and really it's just that one sound that they're making, have the ability to inhale and exhale at the same time, allowing them to play that instrument, which would be indefinitely. But another way to look at this is controlling our incoming and outgoing breath at the same time. Somebody says something you don't like. So what's your outgoing breath going to be? Shut your mouth, right? Right out. You just right out speak. Be quiet. Don't like it. Don't like what you just said. But what Bhagwan Shri Krishna is saying is that for us who are devoted to controlling our life force, if we can control our incoming and outgoing breath at the same time, we'll be balanced. So somebody says something I don't like, what am I going to do instead of going, puh? Guess what happens in those 2 seconds it took me to take a breath? I oxygenated my lungs, which in turn went to my blood, which in turn traveled up to my head and gave me some clarity. So by controlling my inhale, I also controlled my exhale, meaning that as I was breathing in, I couldn't speak out. Try inhaling and saying something at the same time. It doesn't work. That was literally me trying to inhale and speak at the same time. Now I want you trying exhaling and inhaling at the same time. Again, it can't work. It doesn't work. So what he's saying is that if we control this incoming and outgoing breath, we'll be controlled in our life force. One of the things that I was told when I first had tremors, and this came from my vocal and my tabla teacher, were to do some breathing exercises. So the first one was simple. Just sit up straight and inhale. And then exhale. And then inhale and exhale. The other one was to exhale really fast and make my gut contract in. The other one was to plug up one nose, inhale. Exhale through the other one. Inhale. Exhale. And you'll find how clogged up your nose is when you start doing these things. But by doing those things, devotees, I'm controlling my breathing. I'm replenishing all that oxygen in my body. I'm making my myelin sheath stronger around all my nerve endings. I'm controlling my heart rates. So by controlling my incoming and outgoing breaths at the same time, I'm controlling so many things about my health. He also says there are others who check their eating process and offer their prana into the life of prana itself, of life itself. We control our eating process. What does that mean? I can safely say that myself and my family did not control our eating processes yesterday because we had sweets galore. We did. And I always love my parents' explanation for it. You should eat this ice cream now and eat today, for tomorrow we go on a diet. And we say that phrase all the time. I'm still wondering when we're going to go on our diets. But there's some who are very controlled in what they eat and how they eat. For example, for those who have diabetes. For those who have diabetes, you control the amount of sugar you eat. Because what happens when you don't control that amount of sugar? If you get hyperglycemic, it's dangerous for your body. Your fluids become imbalanced, your kidneys could shut down. But for those who become hypoglycemic, what happens to your body? You get lightheaded, you want to pass out, you want to fall, you want to faint. You could potentially die. When we talk about controlling eating, we're talking about eating healthily. Balancing the amount of oils we put in our body. Making sure we fulfill, what is it that we tell the kids? We fulfill what? What tax? A veggie tax. We got to make sure that we're eating the same amount of veggies as we are carbohydrates and other unhealthy things. So, two people who maintain a really controlled life force, or those who can control their breathing and those who can control their eating. All those who know the principles of yajna become free from sin by performing that yajna. The remnants of yajna, having tasted amrita, the remnants of yajna, they eventually attain the eternal Brahma. Isn't that simple? Doesn't it sound so easy? If I can control my breathing, if I can stay strict to that vow, or if I can control what I eat, I'll attain salvation. That's so easy, right? I think it's easy. Don't you guys think it's easy? No, it's not. You go to the store, what's the first thing that you see, or what's the last thing you see when you leave the store? When you go to the grocery store, what's the last thing that you see when you're checking out? To your right, it's always candy. It's always chips. To your left, it's a cooler with different kinds of sodas. Even if it's a Coke Zero or a diet soda, it still contains some sort of artificial sugar or sweetener that's not good for your body. That's not natural. So the last thing you see when you check out is all of these things that tempt you to buy them. And what happens every once in a while? You buy it. You do. You'll get a Snickers bar. I can't do that. I'm allergic to peanuts. I'll get a Zero bar. Something along those lines. Bhagwan Shri Krishna ends, though. We're not done with chapter 4, but he ends by telling Arjuna something very specific. He asks him a question. He poses this question to Arjuna. He says, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
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 Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Yajna Sistam Niratham Mujho Yanti Brahma Sanatanam Nyayam Lokostya Ajyasya Potho Nyakurus Atama Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
On verse 31 of chapter 4 of the Srimad Bhagvat Gita, Bhagavan Shri Krishna ends with a question, which is really one of the first times he's posing a question to Arjuna. He looks at Arjuna and specifically asks a question which I will inform you on during our next virtual Sunday morning service next week. Prem se Bolo Krishna Chandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Devotees, before we commence with our closing prayers, we'll have one song from our Kirtan group and we will move on.
Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raja Nij Man Mukhur Sudhar Barno Raghubar Bimal Jasa Yodayak Phalchar बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि वेद्य देहु मोहि हर हो कलेश विकार. जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर। राम दूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमत निवार सुमत के संगी। कंचन वरन विराज सुवेसा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे, कांधे मूज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंक जड़ावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाए सजीवन लखन जियावे, श्री रघुबीर हर्ष उर आए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई। सहस्र बदन तुम्हरो यस गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित अहिसा। यम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाते, कहीं को बिद कहीं सकय कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीन्हा, राम मिलाए राजपद दीन्हा। तुम्हरे मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। युग सहस्त्र योजन पर भानु, लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि, जलधि लांघ गए अचरज नाहि। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिन पैसारे। सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपन तेज सम्हारो आपे, तीनों लोक हाथ के कापे। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नासै रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों युग प्रताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता, असबर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाई, जह जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चित न धरे, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करे। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई। जो सत बार पात कर कोई, छूत ही बंध महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होई सिद्धि साखी गौरी सा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजे नाथ हृदय महडेरा। कीजे नाथ हृदय महडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरन, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। सिया भजु रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय।
Devotees, may we all please join together now. Clasp our hands, close our eyes, focus our minds on the feet of Bhagwan as we offer and chant these closing prayers. Om Sarvesham Swasti Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shanti Bhavatu, Sarvesham Pururam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu, Sarve Santu Niramaya, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ मन्त्रहीनं क्रियाहीनं भक्तिहीनं जनार्दनं यत्पूजितं मया देवा परिपूर्णं धरस्तु मे पापोऽहं पापकर्माहं पापो आत्मा पापो सम्भुवा त्राहि मां पुण्डरीकाक्षं सर्वपापो हरो हरि ॐ त्वमेव माताश्च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युमामृतं गमय हरि ओं शान्ति 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 हरि ओम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः ॐ ध्यान शान्तिरन्तरिक्षा ॐ शान्तिर्पृथिवी शान्तिरापा शान्तिरौषधेय शान्तिर्वनस्पति शान्तिर्विश्वदेव शान्तिर्ब्रह्मा शान्तिर्सर्वे ॐ शान्तिरेव शान्ति सामा शान्तिरेधि हरि ओं शान्ति शांति शांति हरि ओम तत्सत प्रेम से बोलो गणेश भगवान की जय प्रेम से बोलो आदि शक्ति दुर्गा माता की जय प्रेम से बोलो विष्णु भगवान की जय प्रेम से बोलो शिव शंकर भगवान की जय प्रेम से बोलो शिव शक्ति मंदिर की जय प्रेम से बोलो सनातन धर्म की जय Devotees, with this we have come to the end of our virtual Sunday morning service, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Before we go on to our final song and before we go on to our announcements, remember what I said about distractions? Before we go on to our final song and our final announcements, I would be remiss if I didn't say this because I know he's not going to say this. But this past week, somebody very special in our lives celebrated a very special occasion. So I would like to wish my father and our president a very happy belated birthday. He celebrated his birthday on Wednesday. I know that he is a man of good virtue, so I know he's not going to say it on his own. And I'd be remiss if we did not say that. Earlier, I made a little comment about two people arguing to the side. So my parents were arguing to the side. Arguing is the wrong word. They were talking to the side, and that's just, you know, I get to pick on them every once in a while. But without them, I would not have grown up into the person that I am. And without my father's influence, I would not be able to speak as somewhat eloquently as I do. I also wouldn't have my debonair good looks without him. So happy belated birthday, Dad. With that being said, devotees, we'll go ahead and have one more bhajan before our birthday boy president comes and makes his closing remarks.
जय भोला भंडारी शिव हर जय भोला भंडारी जय भोला भंडारी शिव हर जय भोला भंडारी जय कैलाशपति शिव शंकर जय कैलाशपति शिव शंकर सब जग के हितकारी जय भोला भंडारी शिव हर जय भोला भंडारी निश दिन तेरा ध्यान करे हम सिमरो मंत्र तिहारा हे शिव शंकर मंत्र जगाओ होई घट उजियारा नमामि शंकर नमामि शंकर शंखनाद से शब्द जगा कर स्वर संगीत बहाया। युग युग से ये सृष्टि नाते ऐसा डमरू बजाया। तेरी याद भुला के जग में, तेरी याद भुला के जग में दुख पावे संसारी। जय भोला भंडारी शिव हर, जय भोला भंडारी। तीनों ताप हरण कर लेता ये त्रिशूल तिहाड़ा। तेरा नाम जपे से जग में मिलता मुक्ति द्वारा। महादेव पर ब्रह्म विधाता, महादेव पर ब्रह्म विधाता आई शरण तिहारी। जय भोला भंडारी शिव हर, जय भोला भंडारी। जय कैलाशपति शिव शंकर, जय कैलाशपति शिव शंकर। सब जग के हितकारी। जय भोला भंडारी शिव हर, जय भोला भंडारी।
Testing. Sita Ram devotees, and I trust that you're all doing well, your family are well, and you're all staying safe and following the safety guidelines of CDC. As you know, this virus continue to affect the nation, and especially for us here in Georgia. If you reflect across the nation right now, for most of our spiritual places, churches, temple, masjid, they're all still closed for congregational worship because of the CDC safety recommendation on the number of people that could be gathered and the safety precaution and social distancing. So with that said, as you all know, we still continue to hold our virtual satsang, and I just want you all to know that we really, really do miss our congregational worship. With that said, I don't have anyone celebrating birthday or anniversary or any other special occasions in my notebook today. But I just want to wish all of you happiness in your life, and again, prosperity and great health. Last week, since this virus started, I've been working, not remotely, but physical present at my job every day. And I was getting to a point where I was getting really, really tired. So I told my boss I was going to take the week off. And he said, okay, let's coordinate our schedule. I would take last week off, and he's going to take this week off. And for us men, whenever we're going to take a day off or something, that we have this notion in our head, and we plan our day perfectly. And my week was planned perfectly. I was going to do exactly as planned. And the plan goes something like this here. I was going to sleep in a little bit because I normally wake up about 5:45, between 5:45 and 6 a.m. every morning. I was going to sleep in until about roughly 7 a.m. Then I'll wake up, probably have a cup of coffee, take Destiny for a hike around the lake, come back home, water my plant, tend to my garden. I have 5 bora plants and 5 pepper plants, and then a bunch of flower plants that I was going to tend to. Come in, probably eat some breakfast and relax, just relax for the rest of the day on my lazy boy. And I decided that I was going to go out and buy a bell. And the reason for the bell was if I need anything, I'll ring the bell so Nidra could hear me and she come rushing out and said, "Loving husband, what can I get you?" And I said, maybe refill my coffee cup or maybe another toast or anything, everything, and something along that line. So it was well planned out. Except this is how my week went. Destiny, who is our dog, never wakes up before 8:30 in the morning. Except this week, she decided that every morning at exactly 6:40 a.m., she was going to wake up and she was going to ensure that both me and her mom are fully up. By 7:15, we're out on our adventure around the lake. Come home at around 8, 8:15, 8:30, and I was handed this honey to-do list. And for 10 hours a day, starting last Saturday through Friday of last week, for 10 hours a day, I worked on the honey to-do list. And what did I do? I will take a before picture I start the project and an after picture after I complete the project. And I will send it to my children. And instead, my daughter-in-law and my son-in-law, and instead of them responding back to me and said, "Dad, you know what a fantastic job you have done," their simple response is, "Let us know when you're finished. When would you come over and help us or start with our project?" And I said, "Okay," but nobody came to help me on my project except Tejas and Ashwarya. So Tejas and Ashwarya, I want to say thank you both for helping me for the 2 seconds. But then it dawned on me as I went to Home Depot and Lowe's to get my supply to do my honey to-do list. There were quite a number of shelves that were empty of supplies, painting supplies, wood, sheetrock, and stuff like that. And then it dawned on me that I am not the only one in this predicament. And to my fellow men out there, I know so many of you, instead of having restful days, we're having very productive days, completing that long list of tasks on the honey to-do list that your wife have been holding on to for so many, many years. So congratulations to all the men out there in the world for completing the honey to-do list, to include yours truly. So with that said, I wish you all a great week. Please continue to stay safe out there. And finally, I would like to thank all of you. There's so many birthday wishes via text, phone calls, or messages. I do appreciate it, and I do want to thank all of you. And as I told by Jagdesh when he called to wish me a happy birthday, that we are moving slowly towards the social security age, and it will hit us one of these days, sooner rather than later, because after completing the honey to-do list yesterday, I could feel all the aches and pains going through the bones and through the body. So with that, my dear devotees, you're all missed. Please stay safe, and thank you all very much. Jai Sita Ram.